Claude Cowork has a 1M token context window, and ChatGPT Computer Use is capped at 108K. That's nearly 8 times the headroom on long horizon tasks. One number, real gap, and if you're running multi-step desktop workflows, that difference adds up fast. Both of these agent products launched or matured in 2025 and 2026, so the stakes are live right now. I'm comparing Claude Cowork versus ChatGPT Computer Use across 5 tests, pulling from official docs and verified sources only, and I checked every claim myself before calling anything a win. I went in expecting one of these to clearly dominate, but the actual deciding factor is way more practical than raw capability, and it's going to determine which tool you can actually trust with your workflow budget. That answer's coming in the conditional verdict. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. I went through every number both companies will actually stand behind on these 2 agentic products: official docs, vendor pages, community reports, and I only call a winner where the data is verified on both sides. So who's this for? If you're running autonomous desktop workflows, scheduling recurring tasks, or integrating agents into an enterprise stack, this is your comparison. You're probably spending $20 to $200 a month on one of these plans already, and picking the wrong one means rebuilding your stack later, which costs way more than the subscription. Test 1, real-time web browsing and information retrieval. You've probably heard both tools are great at pulling live data, and that's kind of true, but the architecture underneath is totally different. Claude Cowork routes through Brave Search via Amazon Bedrock. ChatGPT's operator uses Bing, and whether that gap actually matters in practice is what we're finding out. Both Claude Cowork and ChatGPT Computer Use have published web search features with source citations. Claude Cowork uses Brave Search via Bedrock. ChatGPT uses Bing inside Operator, and both provide direct links. What surprised me is that no independent benchmark exists comparing real-world retrieval quality between the two. None that I could find, anyway. This one's closer than it looks on paper. Both tools cite sources, both have server-side web fetch, and both are included on the same $20 entry plan. So the Brave versus Bing difference might matter for enterprise data freshness, but for most use cases, you're not going to feel it day to day. Web browsing is a tie. No independent data exists to split them, so neither side earns the point and the score stays 0 to 0. The Brave search architecture looked like it might give Claude Cowork a clear edge, but without a benchmark to back it up, I can't call it. Test 2. Autonomous task execution and workflow automation. The day your agent tool can't run your desktop apps without you babysitting it, you've lost hours you're never getting back. This is the test that matters most for anyone trying to automate more than just browser clicks. Think scheduled tasks, cross-app workflows, and multi-step execution without hand-holding. What I found here is a pretty clear documentation gap. Claude Cowork has published multi-step workflows, scheduled recurring tasks with time and event triggers, desktop app interaction, and built-in self-verification loops, all documented. ChatGPT's operator. Browser-based automation only, with no published desktop use, no scheduled task spec, and no self-verification docs. And I want to be clear, this is a documentation comparison, not a live capability test. Autonomous tasks is a tie on verified data. Claude Cowork looked like it should take this cleanly given the 1M context and the published desktop automation docs. But the rules are strict here. Without a verified head-to-head test, neither side earns the point, so 2 tests in, still tied at 0 to 0. Test 3, API integration and third-party tool compatibility. Say you're mid-build on an enterprise workflow and you need to route through OpenRouter or hook into an MCP server, and you find out your chosen tool has 0 published docs on how to do that. That's a full stop on your project. So this test is about which tool you can actually verify will connect to your stack. What surprised me here is how wide the documentation gap actually is. Claude Cowork has published support for third-party inference through OpenRouter, Light LLM, and Opera, meaning you can run GPT, Grok, Gemini, or local models through it, plus published MCP server support, a portkey observability integration, and a Stanford Enterprise API Gateway Guide. I couldn't find a single published integration doc for ChatGPT's Computer Use API on any of those fronts. API integration is still a tie on verified scores. I know that sounds wrong, given the documentation gap. And kind of it is. But the rule is both sides need verified data to call a winner. So 3 tests in, 3 tied at 0 to 0. What this gap does tell you is which one you can actually trust to integrate today, and that matters a lot for the conditional verdict. 2 tests left, and the next one is the only place with verified numbers on both sides in this whole comparison, and it's the one that's going to tell you whether the 8 times context gap is worth paying for or not. Test 4, cost per query and subscription pricing transparency. Both tools run $20 to $200 a month on their paid plans. Same number on both sides, but the number that actually matters is what you pay per API call when you scale up, and one of these tools won't tell you what that is. I looked at both pricing pages carefully, and subscription tiers are basically identical. Both start at $20 a month, both cap out at $200, both include the agent feature on paid plans with no extra subscription charge. Where it splits, Claude's API token costs are published at $5 to $15 per $1 million tokens for Opus, and I couldn't find a published per token cost for ChatGPT's Computer Use API anywhere. Pricing is a tie on the subscription side, both verified at $20 to $200 a month, so that's 4 tests in, 4 tied. The token cost transparency gap is real and it matters, but subscription parity is the only fully verified data point here, so neither side takes the point outright. Test 5, response latency and processing speed for complex tasks. A solo dev shipping an MVP on a Friday needs to know if their agent is going to freeze mid-task or come back in a reasonable time, and Claude actually had a documented UI freeze bug in April 2026 from a reasoning effort setting. That's a real thing that happened, so this test matters more than it might look. Claude publishes a 3-tier latency model: Haiku, fastest for simple tasks; Sonnet for daily work; Opus for complex jobs. Reasoning effort is configurable on high, medium, or low. Caching cuts input costs up to 90%, and batch processing saves 50%. For ChatGPT Computer Use, I couldn't find any published latency tiers, caching specs, or batch optimization data for the Computer Use product specifically. Latency is a tie on verified data. 5 tests, 5 tied, and no comparative speed benchmark exists for either product's Computer Use mode, so neither side earns a point even though Claude clearly has more published speed controls. That's the whole scorecard, 0 to 0 across the board. Claude Cowork wins on documentation you can actually act on, published desktop automation, scheduled recurring tasks, third-party inference for any LLM including GPT and Gemini, MCP server support, port key observability, a Stanford Enterprise Gateway Guide, and published API costs at $5 to $15 per $1 million tokens. You also get 8 times the context window at 1M tokens versus 128K. ChatGPT Computer Use wins if you're already deep in the OpenAI ecosystem. Operator is browser native, which makes it simpler for pure web automation. You get tighter integration with GPT-4o, DALL-E, and advanced voice in one place, and there's no documented reasoning effort bug, on record for Operator the way Claude had in April 2026. I went in expecting a clear capability winner, and what I got was a documentation verdict, which is honestly the more useful frame here. If you need documented, verifiable, autonomous desktop workflows with published API costs and third-party integration support, Claude Cowork is the lower-risk choice because that 1M versus 128K context gap is real and the integration docs exist. If you're already in the OpenAI ecosystem and your automation is browser-only, ChatGPT Computer Use is fine. Just go in, knowing you can't verify its capabilities against published specs. I ran Claude Cowork up against Operator on a real multi-step workflow next, and the latency gap actually flips in a way I didn't expect. That full breakdown is on the channel if you want to see the live numbers rather than just the docs.